Coming up on Tech News today, iPad is hot because it's not too hot. Also, Dell goes all 1980 on their computing. And Microsoft conquering all. That and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, April 2nd, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by BigCommerce. From web design to accounting to marketing, BigCommerce provides everything you need to run a successful online business. For a limited time, get a 30-day free trial to build a fully functional store. Go to BigCommerce.com, click on the radio icon, and type in my promo code TNT. And by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to Squarespace.com, use offer code TNT4. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And joining us today from Mac Talk Australia and the future, Peter Wells.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, how you doing?
Good to have you on the show, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
And for getting up early and skipping work.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I really enjoy the skipping work part.
All right, well, we're going to start off with Consumer Reports weighing in on the iPad, the hot iPad controversy. Have you played around with the iPad, Peter?
Absolutely, yeah. I love the new iPad. I don't notice mine getting hot, but then I don't play Infinity Blade all that much.
I really had to play Infinity Blade a lot to get it there, but then I could feel it. Consumer Reports caused a little bit of a controversy when they released the temperature findings, which made it sound really hot. But they've put out their final recommendation today, and according to their blog, responding to consumer comments on the new device and to coverage from other reviewers, we carried out further tests that confirmed the new iPad is warmer in its hottest spots than the iPad 2, but we didn't find those temperatures to be cause for concern. In fact, the iPad now tops their ratings.
Well, woo! I was so worried that it would be a big flop until Consumer Reports could finally weigh in with their findings. I figured that this is what they would come
Our hot
to.
national nightmare is over.
Right, yeah. The iPad's just hot as in cool rather than hot as in hot. Yeah, this is no surprise to anybody. I would have been a lot more surprised if they kept up some sort of this could be a dangerous type of heat. There are still a few people out there that have responded to me because I've obviously been talking about this quite a bit, saying, no, mine really isn't comfortably hot, which sounds like a fluke.
Yeah. And it may be the way they use it causes it to stay hot more often.
Maybe.
I found...
Actually...
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, a friend of mine actually did have a very, very hot iPad, and he just took it to the Apple Store and they replaced it. So, yeah.
And the
it does seem
replacement
to be...
has been better?
Yeah, absolutely. No issues at all. So, yeah, it does seem that possibly it is one of those things that some iPads do get uncomfortably hot, but, yeah, it doesn't seem to be an across-the-board thing. It is nice, though, the iPad has finally, reached the top of the tablets again. So I'm sure I'm the only other person in the world, apart from you, Tom, with a BlackBerry Playbook. So it's good to see the iPad back, you know?
So you're the other guy now. It's nice to meet you. Also top of the charts from ChangeWave Research, they did a survey last week on customer satisfaction and found that of people who had purchased a new iPad, 98% were at least satisfied, if not very satisfied. In fact, 82% were very satisfied with the purchase. What they liked best, 75% of them said the high-res display. 89% said the heat issue was not a problem or they had never experienced it. And this, compared to the iPad 2, where only 74% said they were very satisfied. So from 74 to 82, people more satisfied with Tim Cook, more satisfied with the new iPad?
I would guess that this has a lot to do with more satisfied because they didn't get the iPad 2 in the first place. So between first-gen iPad and third-gen iPad, wow, it is thinner, it is faster, it's a lot more beautiful. I don't think going from first-gen iPad to iPad 2, even though it's a better machine and it was a lot lighter and thinner, was as big of a jump.
I was wondering about the psychosomatic effects of some of these reports where it's like, oh, you know what? It's really hot. Oh, I noticed mine is getting hot too now. Like every time somebody says near me, I'm getting sick, I immediately feel like I'm getting sick. So maybe my iPad feels a little bit hotter in the left corner. I've had that happen a couple of times, but that's because I've had it on for a very long time. On top of that, there was some tests and like anecdotal tests where iPad 2 was showed up against a new iPad, the resolution of the display. They're like, which one is sharper? And a lot of people were picking the wrong one.
They couldn't tell.
Right. So then now they're thinking, I have the high resolution one, so I love it. I'm really satisfied, and I have better pictures and everything. I just wonder how much of it's just, because you think you have something nicer. You don't even realize it.
I thought it was interesting that Consumer Reports, other top 2 tablets, well, other top 3 tablets, along with the new iPad, the Sony Tablet P.
What?
Yeah. Jason,
that's the one that Jason
said don't buy.
Wow. That amazes me.
And the Pantech Element, which is
a piece
water
of clamshell one, right? That's the
it's one? The tablet. Yeah, exactly. It's the small clamshell. That blows me away because the user experience splitting the image across 2 screens alone is just ridiculous.
Well, apparently you're wrong.
I'm wrong. I know. What do I know?
All right, let's move on to Dell. We talked about last week how Dell had retired the review, getting out of the smartphone business. They have now agreed to acquire thin client hardware and software company Weiss Technology, W-Y-S-E, to expand their desktop virtualization offerings. Weiss has got something called the T10, which uses a proprietary OS, thin OS, which has been tailored for use on thin clients. It's a small device, quick starting, and the client can be used with a number of different platforms. So if your enterprise runs Citrix or Microsoft or VMware, it works with all of those. And Weiss also offers management software that can control iPads and iPhones and Android tablets and Android phones in your enterprise. The company's also working on a product called Stratus, which allows IT administrators to manage any device, smartphone, PC, or otherwise, regardless of whether that device is owned by the company or owned by the person. This has been a growing trend for a few years now of saying, you bring your own device, we're going to put a virtual operating system that's walled off from the rest of what you do. So you can get viruses all day long. We don't care because it can't get into the virtual client. Brian Marshall of ISI estimates that Dell probably paid $350 to $400 million, but Weiss is a private company, so they don't have to divulge how much they paid for it. Essentially, this means Dell is saying, out of the smartphone business into the enterprise business, we're going to go more business oriented.
Yeah, the profit margins on PC sales has been low for a pretty long time now. That's why people were trying on netbooks, and Dell got out of that business. They tried their hand at smartphones and trying to find a new marketplace that way. Failed tablets and such. They have to set themselves up for the future. Same thing with what HP was trying to do. They're moving more towards the business side because there's always going to be a demand there, and there's always going to be a bunch of people who are willing to learn about the products in the IT departments as opposed to consumer PCs where all of that education is based on like either Microsoft or Google, whoever's running the actual operating system. So it's just more like it's future thinking. Dell's got to stick around they have to make this move if they want to stick around.
Peter, do Australian companies are they experimenting with this? Bring your own device sort of situation.
Absolutely, yeah. We're seeing a lot of the kind of bring your own device thing happening. I've got one client that I work with. They allow any operating system. They don't care as long as they run a VM on their machine. So yeah, like you were saying, it's one of those things to really kind of take any kind of worry about that, any kind of worry about how your end users might behave with their computers away from them, and just say, look, bring your own device. It's the same with the phone. I think the phone model is where it comes from, that people get used to bringing their own Android phone or their own iPhone and just getting a mobile device management on top of it.
A bunch of IT pros from the 60s are like, we told you terminal computing would be back. We told you.
Or Larry Ellison with Oracle freaking out.
Yeah, right.
Could have had this.
It could have been mine. Weiss has been around since the 80s, too. It's no spring chicken itself, but they have been riding the return wave of the thin client. I think they reached their peak in the 90s, and now don't call it a comeback. They've been here for years. Let's move on to global payments. Those are the folks we told you about on Friday who got hacked, and some business-related credit card numbers were breached. They have admitted that there was a network intrusion. They talked on Sunday evening about how their North American operations had been hit, and data had been exported, they said, that was their term, for about 1.5 million credit card holders. The exported information included only Track 2 data. So I've learned a little more about this. Track 1 data is the data you need to actually clone a credit card. Cardholder names, addresses, social security numbers, that's all Track 1. So global payments in contradiction to the report we'd heard on Friday, says there was no Track 1 data, only Track 2 data out there. So they should only have numbers. They should not have your other information. And then they had a conference call this morning where Global Payments CEO Paul Garcia revealed that Visa has actually dropped the company, Global Payments, from its registry of providers that meet the PCI credit card processing security standard. Now, Garcia said, look, the breach has been absolutely contained. He expects Visa to reinstate Global Payments after they demonstrate compliance. And he wanted to hasten to reassure people it was a limited handful of servers in Global Payments Payment Processing Center, did not involve any other partners. They are still processing payments, and Visa is allowing them to continue to process payments. And they're working with third parties, regulators, and law enforcement to assist in the efforts to minimize impact of the breach. Now, I don't know what else to say about this other than it wasn't 10 million, it was 1.5 million, and it wasn't Track 1 data. It was only Track 2 data, so it's not nearly as bad as it sounded on Friday.
And it sounds like this CEO Garcia is confident that this is something they'll get back on track. They'll be in Visa's good graces again, and they continue on. I mean, what's the alternative? That Global Payments goes away because they're not good enough to meet Visa standards? Doesn't sound like that's what's going on.
Well, they could continue to process without being registered. It's just people might shy away from using them. So they
Visa doesn't want to be associated too much with companies that have insecurities.
Visa's saying you need to prove that your stuff is secure. And we should add too that Global Payments self-reported and self-discovered this breach. It wasn't something where they were trying to hide it. They discovered that a couple servers had been compromised. They immediately went to Visa and said, "Hey, we got a problem. We got to deal with it now."
And this isn't even the biggest breach in recent history. Somewhere around 2004, 40 million card data was exposed. So, I mean, I guess good on Global for actually just saying something about this instead of doing we didn't notice anything for months, which could have been a disaster.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, BigCommerce.com. The internet has opened a huge opportunity for businesses all across the internet to reach customers. You have the world at your fingertips. Untapped revenue is sitting there for you to take for your e-commerce business. But if you think, it's a little too complicated, we've got the best way to do it for you. BigCommerce. BigCommerce provides you with all the tools needed to set up and run a successful online store. You don't have to think about programming. You don't have to think about inventory management. You don't have to think about all that hard stuff. All you got to think about is your products and getting them out on the internet and into people's hands and making some money off them. One-stop shop with features like web design, shopping carts, shipping, marketing through social networking sites even. If you're worried about Twitter and Facebook, they'll do that for you too. Accounting, analytics, it's all taken care of for you. BigCommerce has already helped drive almost $750 million in sales for businesses in just the past 2 years. BigCommerce is the solution to drive the most sales for your business right away. And we've got a special offer that you can try it out absolutely free. This is the incredible limited time offer. Listen up, 30-day free trial to build a fully functional store. This isn't a limited store. It's not like, you can try out 1 or 2 features. No expense to you. Set up a fully functional store and give it a shot. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. Set up your online store for free today. Go to BigCommerce.com. Click on that radio icon that's up there at the top of the homepage. Type in the promo code TNT, and you can get on your way to starting for 30 days free a store. That's BigCommerce.com. Remember to enter TNT, and we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Onward into the continuing efforts for Nokia to fool you into buying their phones.
Well, maybe it's Nokia, right? Because there's a big ad campaign right now. Ad campaign called SmartPhoneBetaTest.com, and everyone's saying it's Nokia. Take a look at the page. You can see there's a bunch of there's a guy waiting for this countdown to end, and the countdown seems to be about 2 days before the Lumia 900 launches. If you look at the top left corner, you will see something blacked out. So for the audio listeners, there's a blacked out logo, and it looks like the hint of the white Nokia logo. Yeah, very hard to see.
Enhance.
You can't see anything.
Let me dial that in.
What you actually do to find out.
Reconstruct.
If you go into the page source like I did, and WP Central did something similar, I found in the CSS the custom Nokia font. Well, that sounds about right.
There you go.
WP Central found Nokia tags in some code as well. So it looks like it's them. Now, the whole campaign is based on saying every smartphone up till whatever this countdown leads to, the 900, was a beta product. There's a bunch of videos showing what looks to be probably Apple-like people sitting around. Here it is. You can see this phone. Looks like
Apple-like people?
Well, as in the way when they're discussing, they're going, I'm holding the phone this way. Did you notice the bars drop? They go, you're holding it wrong. Use the approved method. So there's a series of these videos showing that one phone is too fragile, and if it drops, it's good for sales. We can always sell more. And these are obvious knocks on the iPhone or any other fragile phones out there.
Look, no signal.
So the question
Don't
is,
hold it like that.
is this the true first smartphone when the 900 launches in a couple of weeks? Because, it's Windows Phone. And also, when you click some of these graphics, they look like Windows Phone tiles. So it's just like, yeah, we get it.
We get it. It's Nokia. They're trying to market. That's fine. Do you think that this is going to resonate with people, though? I mean, do you think that people are still frustrated about phone reception issues? That's like almost a 2-year-old issue at this point. I don't hear people talking about that.
No, in fact, this sounds dated to me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we have to go after the iPhone somehow. Well, what's like the big thing that the iPhone got knocked for? I guess Antenna Gate. But yeah, that's not something that people are talking about right now. It's old news.
They should be hitting Siri, right?
Yeah, that actually would make more sense. Although that is absolutely a beta product. And Apple says so, rather than Apple saying, iPhone 4S, best phone ever.
There are no rules in love and advertising.
I mean, it shows how risky Nokia is. They're taking this as a big gamble here. They want to take on the iPhone. Instead of taking on some Android phone or some other old version of Windows and saying, it's a break from the past, they're gunning for the top dog here. This is that has the most mind share. I don't know if the strategy is a great one. I mean, Samsung did the same thing with the Note, and they're like, we'll compare ourselves to the other guys. There's really no need to do that if your product's really great. You go, this is a great product. It stands on its own 2 feet. But this is something that consumers are going to do in the store. They're going to say, well, why do I pick this phone over this one? Why? Well, this one's durable. This one's got tiles and get all the data up front.
Yeah.
Versus this one is Apple or this one is Motorola.
Well, you always attack the incumbent if you're the challenger.
Right.
You always attack the front runner. So I get that. Peter, what do you think? Is this going to work for Nokia? Is this going to get them some market share?
I don't know. I mean, I think you can always, have some fun taking on Apple's kind of arrogance, and I think that's what this campaign's doing. But I don't know. Once you actually get the Windows Phone in your hand, though, it really the idea that every other phone has been a beta test for the Windows Phone seems a bit strange, because I think Windows Phone is kind of on par with iOS 3 at the moment. It's not there yet. It's not anywhere near as good as iOS 5. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of a risky thing to raise expectations so much on a phone that may not be exactly where it is yet.
Well, then again, it's Windows Phone, and they're late to the game. And why not say, this is the most amazing phone you've ever had ever, rather than, it'll do.
Yeah, right. I mean, what are they going to say, right? Yeah, exactly.
That was the rejected ad campaign. It'll do.
Our phone isn't bad.
The it'll do campaign will work better once you actually get the phone in your hand, though, and then you'll go, oh, wow, I'm pleasantly surprised. Yeah. I don't know.
The Nokia Lumia 900 is a good phone. So, I mean, I think they can compete on their merits with that phone. It's just a matter of whether people are going to buy this line of like, that all the other phones pale in comparison. I'm not sure if reality plays out that well or not, but we'll see. We have some good news for Microsoft, though. Lest you think we're being unkind. Microsoft back on top.
Internet Explorer is back. Top dog, Busters. Not actually by very much at all, but still, it is a rise. 1.2% net gain of global usage of IE over the past 5 months. Almost an entire percentage point, actually, in March alone. This is also a time period where both Chrome and Firefox dropped in user numbers. Again, very, very slight numbers, but you think, wow, at this point, IE had been losing market share. Both Chrome and Firefox, particularly Chrome, had been gaining. IE had a little uptick. Why? Well, according to Roger Capriotti, who's a product manager over at Microsoft, he posted on Exploring IE blog over at Microsoft. It's because it's Windows 7 and IE 9. People love Windows 7, and there are a lot of IE 9 users running Windows 7. According to net applications numbers that are published by Microsoft, IE9 is responsible for almost half, 48.8% of US-based traffic from Windows 7, followed by 14.6% for Google Chrome, 11.6% for Firefox. So clearly the winner on Windows 7. And guess who else is gaining?
Well, obviously Windows 7 is going to be gaining in the operating system.
You would think that, Tom.
Yeah, I would. I do.
However, XP gained.
What?
Over Windows 7. That's correct. 46.86% share of the OS market last month, up from 45.39% in February for Windows XP. Windows 7 actually dipped a little bit. So that doesn't mean that...
Wait, so if the reason for IE9 going up is Windows 7, and then it dipped from...
Here, well, it's two different metrics, right?
Okay.
IE9 users happen to there happen to be a lot of IE9 users on Windows 7. Windows 7 over the last 6 months has gained very respectably.
Right.
It's just in the last month, for whatever reason, XP kind of went up a little bit, and Windows 7 kind of went back a little bit. Long term, Windows 7 is still absolutely gaining. XP is losing market share, though very slowly. But people who are still using XP, remember in 2014, Windows is going to be discontinuing extended support for XP. That means no security patches, no bug fixes, no nothing. So XP is going to be like a cesspool of unprotected OS for hackers to just have their way with. Oh, it's going to be awful. And then, of course, we've got Windows 8. The beta came out. It got 1 million downloads on its first day. A lot of interest. Then again, it's got a long ways to go as far as market share goes. It's only got 0.11% of market share for March. That's, again, according to Net Applications. That's Microsoft's own numbers. But that is up from 0.03 in February, when only the developer preview was available. Then we've got the Windows 8 release candidate that has been rumored to possibly be available in early June. Final version sometime later this year, fall-ish. So that's going to skew the numbers as well.
These numbers are month over month, and that means that seasonal variations of any kind can affect them. I wouldn't put too much stock in this as a long-standing trend. I think the reason this is getting such headlines today is Internet Explorer has been consistently going down.
Right.
Not by huge amounts, but it had dipped below 50% by some measures. And so to see it finally trend back up, even for just a month, is giving a lot of people who like Internet Explorer something to cheer about. But I'm not sure that it changes in the face of all of those months the long-term trends.
No.
We'll have to give it a few more months to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Microsoft's obviously going to tout this as, you see, we've got a good, solid product with IE9, especially when you pair it with something like Windows 7. We got Windows 8 on the horizon. Forget Chrome, forget Firefox. That's not necessarily going to be true for everybody, but they at least are nice, strong numbers that they can go public with.
Iyaz, or Peter, either one. Do you have thoughts on explanation of why XP had the bump?
It just seems like anytime you do any kind of data collection, you have that one dot that doesn't fit the line, and that's this one. Because I know I have had this tons of times when I was doing like lab reports and things. There's this one anomaly, and then it totally is okay over the long term.
Right.
But this is not a trend at all. It's like Windows XP is going to go away, because when Microsoft says, look, we're really not supporting this, even though they kept delaying that, IT professionals will go, get rid of that thing because it's not safe, and it's not a good thing. And 7 is going to be picking up. As for IE, it's getting better. It really is getting better in the long run. So it eventually has to stop declining. It's never going to hit zero. It's IE. They're on everything.
Peter, you think it's an outlier?
I think, I kind of feel responsible for the XP numbers. One of the places I work for just moved 5,000 users to XP after a 2-year program.
From where?
So, they were all on variations of XP. So this was a standard version of XP that got rolled out in the hope that within 2 or 3 years they can move everyone to Windows 7. So, big organizations take a while to move. So, that doesn't surprise me in that way. But I do think that kind of Firefox is the one that hurts the most. I don't see anyone talking about Firefox with much love these days anymore. I see a lot of designers on Twitter complaining about building code for Firefox. And I don't know, IE has kind of lost some of that hatred that the designers used to have, and Firefox seems to have kind of grabbed some of that.
I've got some hate for Chrome every once in a while. Just because
why is that?
Well, it just crashes on me out of nowhere. It'll be perfectly fine, which is why I use it for months on end, and then I'll have a day where it just won't. It strikes. For
the last 2 weeks, Facebook has been completely unusable in Chrome. I have flash crashes.
Yeah,
can't use it.
It usually happens to me with
fine
with
for
Google
the last
Docs.
several years.
And it happened to me end of last week. This week it's fine.
Yeah.
So it's just moody. That's all. Let's finish up with an announcement of the 6 strikes copyright alert system here in the United States. The country's top internet service providers, along with major film and recorded music companies, have been planning this for over a year now. Graduated response is what they call it. It means that they slowly send you notices, try to educate you about copyright, and they have the option at the end to suspend service, but there's no service termination as part of this plan, just suspension. So you can argue whether that's the same thing or not. They have announced that they've hired Jill Lesser as executive director of the operation. and it will be called the Center for Copyright Information, or CCI. Ms. Lesser is currently managing director of the Glover Park Group, a public policy firm, so she's a lobbyist. Previously, she worked for People for the American Way and as an executive at AOL Time Warner. And in her statement, she pledged to focus on, quote, education and deterrence, not punishment. So she very specifically said this is not about going out and slapping people down. This is about teaching people about copyright and trying to get them to do the right thing. CCI's advisory board is what gets really interesting. It will include a large number of privacy and technology advocates, including Jerry Berman, chairman of the Internet Education Foundation, and he's also the founder of the Center for Democracy. Marsley Hancock, president of iKeepSafe.org. Jules Polonetsky, director of the Future of Privacy Forum. And here's the big one. Gigi Sohn, president and CEO of Public Knowledge. If that rings a bell for you, Public Knowledge and Gigi Sohn in particular are commenting on every single piece of copyright legislation ever presented, trying to show that it's not necessary and copyright is overprotecting and we're getting it wrong. So first of all, for them to ask her to be on the advisory board is a huge step, and for her to agree to be on this advisory board is a huge step towards peace in our time in the copyright wars. Now, this is just an advisory board, obviously. It's still the 6-member board of directors, which holds all the power, and that is made up of representatives from the entertainment companies and the ISPs. So if they don't like what's going on with the advisory board, they can get rid of the advisory board. There's also an independent review process. If you feel like you've been incorrectly identified in this process, you can go to the American Arbitration Association, and they will train independent reviewers to hear appeals by individual users. So you can argue, I guess, whether we need something like this or not entirely, but if we do, if you want to agree, for the sake of the argument to say, well, we need some kind of system, this is starting to shape up like one that's as much about educating the industry in some ways by having somebody like Gigi Sohn on an advisory board as it is about educating the users.
Yeah, I think it's easy to go, oh, well, film and music companies, those guys, I mean, they're not working in our best interest at all. But even if this is some sort of PR move. I mean, let's be as cynical as possible here. I don't think that having all of these people on an advisory board that have good, solid information that can help educate people on how the copyright process works is bad for anybody. It seems like it can only help spread real factual knowledge that can help people make informed decisions going forward.
And one of the big things with these private kind of organizations is that it can be much more flexible and much more nimble compared to like a government kind of based system. The fact that it's being privately managed and you have all these different people and different interests theoretically talking and hopefully educating each other to the point where they can move in a more progressive manner than a law could. Because laws can... You've seen this every now and then. Gigi Sohn, we've seen her. I'm like, I knew this name. Why? Because she was speaking at the SOPA hearings. She was explaining, this is broken. We can't use this. And the thing is, if she can somehow convey that information over to some of these people, maybe they understand that. And if not, she's going to speak out as well. So it's kind of an interesting position to be in, because I still think this private-based thing could overall may be better than a government intervention kind of system.
Peter, from the outside perspective, looking in from Australia, how does this system look to you?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard for us just because I whenever I hear copyright, it's so funny. Like last night on Twitter, I had to switch off Twitter because I didn't want to see a Game of Thrones spoiler, and Game of Thrones hasn't legally been ever shown in this country. So it almost feels like copyright has kind of almost gotten away from us in Australia. So I don't know. Look, this sounds like an amazing group of people, really well thought out. So anything like that is a good thing, I think, to finally kind of move away from that suing the user perspective, which never goes down that well.
I look at this and I think, God, do we need an extra legal proceeding for this? Well, at least they're not going to try to cut people's internet off, right? It seems like maybe it's unnecessary in the long run, but if it helps the industry sort of feel better, maybe it's worth that. And the one thing that I think is a huge positive is when you have folks like Gigi Sohn or even Marsley Hancock or even Jerry Berman, you get a dialogue going about what really needs to happen with copyright. Because I personally, that's what I feel is the problem is we have not identified what the actual harm is that needs to be reformed. I think there are plenty of actual harms to fair use, to innovation, to the ability to create content by the current copyright laws, and those never get heard. So let's balance this debate out. I can't say that I'm unhappy with this. We'll see how long they tolerate public knowledge having a representative on their advisory board, but here's hoping from the outset that it goes well. Let's move on to the news views. You've probably been hearing a lot about the iOS app Girls Around Me. It's the one that tells you whether there were women in your vicinity who had checked in publicly on things like Foursquare and Facebook. It's no longer in the App Store after Foursquare cut off access to the app. Girls Around Me received a lot of buzz from Cult of Mac doing a piece on it, suggesting the app could be used for stalking capabilities. The app developers pulled the app because without Foursquare data, the app just does not work. If you were wondering, the Girls Around Me app used that Foursquare data to tell you where the girls were. The developer maintains that the app used only publicly available data.
It seems like it was a case of just really bad marketing more than anything nefarious going on. Because, again, this is public data that you can get from Foursquare itself. And when the Girls Around Me developers tried to explain that, I mean, they're basically saying, listen, we do nothing interesting at all. You can get all this information in a much more popular app than ours. It's just that we marketed it as a way to sound creepy, and everybody got freaked out.
And why isn't there boys around me?
We don't care about that.
Oh, okay.
That's not true. Listen up, you new iPad users. Both Facebook and the Barnes & Noble Nook app have been updated with support for the iPad Retina display. What does that mean? Sharper images, of course. The Facebook update also takes care of a bug where the wrong profile pic of a user was being displayed, which is always very confusing. Correct images with correct names, please.
Ashton Kutcher is set to play Steve Jobs in a movie called Jobs. Now, while this was reported on April 1st, the news is not a joke. The Jobs film will be directed by Joshua Michael Stern and will not be based on Walter Isaacson's biography of Jobs. Sony's still working on that adaptation of that work.
Asimov points out you could set Girls Around Me to find guys. Just so in case you were wondering.
Nice.
Of course, you can't now because it doesn't work.
Shoot.
More news from the App Store front. This time it's Amazon's App Store, which according to a new Flurry study, earns more than the Google Play Store, both Android stores. Flurry compared the Android Store to Apple's App Store and found for every $1 spent on an iOS app, Amazon App Store users spent 89 cents and Google Play users spent 23 cents.
Three very important things in real estate: location, and patents.
What?
Yes. Due to a patent dispute over H.264 with Motorola in Germany, Microsoft has decided to move its European distribution center from Germany to the Netherlands. A ruling to the Microsoft-Motorola dispute is expected on April 17th. An injunction in Germany could stop Microsoft from shipping products in Europe, hence the move.
Kimberly Hester, a teacher's aide at an elementary school, was suspended for not giving up her Facebook password to her bosses and is now suing the Lewis Cass Intermediate School District. The school wanted access to her Facebook page because she posted a photo in April 2011 that got parents pretty upset. The image showed a picture of a coworker's pants around her ankles and a pair of shoes along with the caption, "Thinking of you."
Now, Apple and Samsung, we know you have your differences, but come on, come in close to each other. Come in close. Let's give each other a high five. That's right. The two of you account for 95% of smartphone handset profits for the fourth quarter, according to Canaccord Genuity. Apple makes up 80% of the profits in the market, so your 5 can be a little higher. The other 5% are huddled, crying in a corner, trying to figure out what to do because Canaccord expects Apple and Samsung to increase their share of profits in the next quarter.
Who wants a mojito?
Me.
I'll take one.
Me too, except it's not the kind of mojito we're hoping for, but it might still be cool. Yahoo just open sourced its web application framework named Mojito. Yahoo says the framework is designed to help deliver content to devices with intermittent or weak connections. Mojito is JavaScript-based and allows developers to write apps using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Node.js.
It's almost official. Samsung has spun off its display unit, which will be called Samsung Display Co. I know.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, the company will be independent from Samsung Electronics and will be incorporated this week. Samsung's display assets already make it the world's largest display manufacturer. In other display news, Philips is distancing itself away from HD TVs by completing its transfer of 70% of its HD TV division to a joint venture it maintains with Hong Kong's TPB.
That's because everybody's afraid of the Apple TV, right?
No, the profits are lousy.
Oh. So maybe Apple shouldn't make a TV.
Unless they have a huge profit margin.
All right. Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
How would it sound to you if someone were going to look for new galaxies, dark matter, and the origin of the universe?
Sounds good to me.
And all we need is by 2024 to just be able to do some exascale computing.
Well, that can't be too hard, right?
Right. It's just the equivalent of twice the world's internet traffic every day in one computer.
Oh, is that possible?
Yeah. Well, maybe. IBM thinks it can do it.
All right.
It's going to try. They're working with Astron, the Netherlands-based astronomy organization, to develop an exascale computer system that will form the backbone of the largest and most sensitive radio telescope ever built, the Square Kilometer Array, or SKA. Get out your horns. SKA will be built out with the help of astronomers from more than 20 countries. And hey, Peter, they're looking at Australia and New Zealand, also South Africa, as possibly one of the places to install the millions of antenna required to make the SKA work.
This looks so scary but awesome. No, I love it. I love everything about this.
This is fantastic astronomy and fantastic computing combined in one. So if you're a fan of either one or both, this is the story for you. And we're talking about crazy amounts of data. When you're talking about exabytes of data, what do they say? A few exabytes a day for a single beam per 1 square kilometer. It'll need to store 300 to 1,500 petabytes of data per year. As a comparison, CERN, with the Large Hadron Collider, stores 15 petabytes per year on average.
Wow.
So you're talking about 100 Hadron Colliders per year.
Well, I, for one, hope that they are successful because it sounds like a lot of work.
These numbers are just big enough
like
that I can't possibly fathom how large this is. Because
when Tom was doing the math in his head, I'm like, I'm just going to...
It's like... If you're moving around twice the amount of traffic that's on the internet every day, no, I can't do that. Sorry, I can't comprehend. It's not working.
That's a lot of YouTube.
I'm gonna need more processing power.
It's kind of like $100 bill. Whoa, huh? That's a lot of money. So,
I can't even fathom that.
I'm just saying, that's a lot.
Look at all
there can't be more money than that. SKA will aim to explore the universe dating back 13 billion years, so doing some amazing astronomy research. Let us take a break and thank our sponsor, Squarespace.com. Yes, Jason agrees. The fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. Squarespace.com has easy-to-use UI for creating and managing a website, optimized for both beginners and CSS experts, and some recently added functions that we may not have told you about. Complete web font library from Google. So over 300 fonts now fully integrated. And they're doing these webinars now. So if you're like, God, I'm such a beginner. I mean, I know the templates are easy and everything, but I want to learn a little more before I dive in. Dive in now and take the webinar. They also give you 24/7 support. Online resources and a special support team are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And with those live webinar classes, everything you could possibly need to make the perfect website, including 16 all-inclusive services like a blog module, the blog importer, form builder, Flickr photo display maker, Twitter widgets, social media buttons, Google Maps, and more. Don't have to take our word for it. Of course, though, you can go check it out right now for free. Go to squarespace.com, sign up for a free account. You don't need to use a credit card. You don't need to try. They're not going to try to trick you into paying for things. They even have data portability. You can take your data back out when you're done. Just try it out. Start building your website. If you do decide to purchase it, use the offer code TNT4 and you'll get 10% off your first purchase on a new account. Now, that means if you only buy monthly, you'll get 10% off the first month. But if you buy for a year, you get 10% off the whole year. So check that out, squarespace.com. Use that offer code TNT4, and we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. What's on the calendar, Sarah?
25 years ago today, IBM announced OS 2. What? Along with a new line of 4 PS2 computers. Oh. Yeah, OS 2 didn't ship actually until December of 1987, but the announcement was today, April 2nd. It was intended to replace DOS. Remember, back before Microsoft Windows kind of brought life back to DOS and changed everything, and IBM was like, thanks for nothing. No, actually... It was an interesting time in our history. Moving on now to the future. Verizon's Droid Razr and Razr Max are getting Android 4.0. That's Ice Cream Sandwich on April 4th. The Resound is getting on the 6th. Now, this is according to some text on Best Buy's website, which had a lot of people saying, well, wait a second, Best Buy doesn't really post stuff like this. How do they even know? But both Android Police and Techno Buffalo both say they have confirmed this information with their sources. The HTC One X and the One S will have launched in Europe and parts of Asia today. They are coming to the U.S. eventually, but will be different models. So the European and Asian One X is a GSM phone with a Tegra 3 processor, for example. The ones we'll be seeing in the U.S., AT&T model is going to have a Qualcomm processor. The Sprint model will be a CDMA phone. So get excited, but make sure that you're reading the specs on the phone so you don't end up with something that you didn't want.
Yeah, Peter, you got to play around with, what, the One X, I think?
Yeah, I played around with the One X on the weekend, and as an iPhone user, it just feels gigantic. I've got tiny little girl hands for it, but yeah, it's got an absolutely gorgeous screen and a beautiful camera. But it is running Ice Cream Sandwich, but it's got that HTC Sense UI on top of it, so it really doesn't look like any Ice Cream Sandwich I've played around with yet. So yeah, it's an interesting phone.
I'm looking forward to someday that coming to our shores. Maybe that would be kind of nice. Let's check what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Jason in Sandy, Utah. Which actually really isn't that sandy. It's kind of misnamed. Says, I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in Mississippi and uses Spire for his cell phone carrier. That's a regional carrier down there. We've talked about them before. Spire is popular in Mississippi, Alabama, and he calls it Florabama. I think that's the panhandle. He was telling me that they're going to start charging a separate fee on top of data for streaming data. For example, Pandora, Netflix, etc. Jason says, I about fell out of my chair when I heard this. I'm sure this will ruffle Tom's feathers, as I've heard his soapbox about net neutrality and data being data. I sure hope this isn't going to be a trend. This is probably related to them getting the iPhone soon. Makes me grateful for being on an unlimited Sprint plan, even if I can't get a 4G signal at the light rail station in front of the largest hospital in UT. Thanks for providing, or in Utah. Thanks for providing such a great show. Not the University of Texas. Wasn't Spire doing something cool with their data plans, and now they're like doing the reverse? They're basically saying, ones. "Oh, you want to stream? Oh, that's totally different."
Well, 30 minutes you get free data streaming. 2 hours is $5. 5 hours is $10. Infinite streaming, $30. So the question is whether it's a good thing to break out streaming from your cap. I guess. I mean, like a lot of people are surprised when they're like, "Oh, I was streaming March Madness or something, and I didn't realize this was happening." Well, maybe it's not a bad thing to pay a little extra to know what's going on instead of going, I need another 5 gigabytes. I need another 10 gigabytes. Because it doesn't look like they actually have a page, what's streaming and what's not. They're talking about video and audio as streaming. So they're not actually counting Netflix traffic different than Pandora, which is strange. I think about it because if it's data, right, it should be more, you're consuming more data with video. So it's kind of odd how they're setting it up.
Streaming is basically what they're saying is we're trying to come up with a new way to trick users into monitoring how much data they use, or at least get people to pay more. And one way we'll do that is a constant stream of data will get treated separately, because that, even whether it's audio or video, is definitely using more data than a web site being loaded.
But if they just asked you to add more gigabytes, what works for consumers at that point? That's what I'm kind of curious about. I mean, at first it seems like it's kind of evil, and then I'm thinking, well, again, I don't know how many gigabytes I'm using necessarily. I have to keep track and I have to keep records and go, oh yeah, by the way, I was only using 5. Now I don't need to do the math. I guess if you're a consumer, you're like, yeah, maybe this is helpful. But for us, I think it's kind of like, it looks nefarious.
You've been dealing with bandwidth caps in Australia forever, Peter. How does this strike you, the idea of metering streaming separately?
Yeah, it's. I mean, we do have a couple of the networks will do certain things like this. So Telstra will allow the AFL to be streamed for free on their 3G networks and stuff like that, and without touching your data limits. So I don't know. I'm with Iyaz. It feels evil, but at the same time, it kind of, I don't know. Once you get the benefit, I mean, I love the AFL, so
That's a violation of net neutrality, though. They're saying, Australian rules football. That doesn't count against your data cap.
Yeah, I know. I should, in theory, hate it, but in practice, it actually turns out pretty well.
That's how they get you.
I know. First they came for the AFL and I said nothing. I don't know.
Then they came for rugby union and you said nothing.
Johnny from Northern Ireland writes in our second email, says, you probably heard about the UK government's plans to introduce monitoring on innocent UK citizens. He includes a link to The Guardian we'll put in our show notes. He says, we're a small service provider hosting virtual servers to customers throughout the world. Several liberty issues aside, how is this going to work for small providers like us? Have the government considered that many people and businesses host their own email servers? Do we have to monitor our customers' email servers, even though we're not even hosting an email service for them? How do we do this? Where's the money coming from? Have they consulted with industry on the matter? Since the internet is an open system, anybody can plug in a cable and go. There are many other technical issues that need to be considered outside of the standard cable, DSL, ISP context, as small providers like us will lose out otherwise.
And from what I've read of this, the idea is that the UK is trying to provide the equivalent of a wiretap service to the police. So they have to get a warrant. They have to have a show cause of why they want to monitor this person's email, et cetera. It's not just wide open tapping all the time. But if that person is encrypting their email, they're not going to get anything anyway. So I don't understand what they it sounds like something that makes sense on paper and wouldn't work out in practice. And I think it's interesting that Johnny here is pointing out another problematic issue with it, which is what is a service provider?
Right.
Yeah. All right, that's it for this issue of Tech News Today. You can fold it up, put it on the shelf with your other issues, your back issues.
Or frame it. It was a really good one. So.
Oh, thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. Part of the reason it was so good is because of you folks telling us what you want to hear about at our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. Go in there and vote, put up stories, all of that sort of thing. And another reason it was so good is because we had Peter Wells on to join us and give us the Australian perspective. Thank you, Peter, for taking the time to join us, and let folks know where they can find your work.
Just follow me on Twitter, I guess is the easiest thing. Full-time casual on Twitter. So, yeah, thank you so much for letting me be on the show.
Always a pleasure, and thank you, folks, for watching. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call. Leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll see you tomorrow.